you get famous overnight. That's what happens. It's a lifetime experience. Like Winner actually lived in the house just for a few different shots here and there, just to be on the camera. Everybody knew that he is actually in the house, so people watching at home. But in reality, he was playing in Bucharest and he was living at home, which, if you could argue that that's not fair.
Do you reckon that guy was always destined to win no matter what?
You mentioned that what happens after it finishes. Nothing, man. They promised us when we finished at boot camp, right before getting into the live show, they said that everybody that is at this stage of the competition, no matter if you're a finalist or if you're eliminated in the first live show, you're going to get out from here with some sort of deal.
Yeah.
Nah.
So, welcome to my first in the new series of podcasts where I'm going to have a whole bunch of different guests with amazing journeys, amazing stories, and not just necessarily SEO related stories, because that gets boring after a while. And it's a fitting person to have as my first guest, which is Mr. Bogdan Bratis. And the reason that he is fitting is he has also helped me put all of this equipment and all of this stuff together over probably been a few months since you first came here when we were doing the white box thing and everything. So,
that's your fault.
So it's fitting to have Bogdan as the first guest. But you guys will be like, who the fuck is Bogdan? So Bogdan, I want to introduce you to the audience, which I think obviously your background is pretty wild. Obviously, as a kid, growing up in Romania, you dreamed of being a musician. You got to the final of the X Factor, which I think is an amazing story, which we'll go into. Things didn't quite work out in the music career after that, and you came across to the UK and learned music and somehow landed up in Glasgow. But can you give us a bit about what your actual credentials are now? What are you doing here and now? And then we'll go back into the whole where it all kicked off in the X Factor and all the good stuff. So I don't know what to quite call you, actually. That's the horrible thing. Would it be podcast hosting guy, podcast producing guy, musician guy, or you're doing the digital marketing stuff as well? So it's quite a hard thing to introduce. So how are you introducing yourself to people?
So I would introduce myself as, for now, as a podcast producer. I'm the owner of Saspod, which is a podcast production company based here in the UK, and I work with clients worldwide on producing podcasts. And I do things like, what I helped you with the studio, recommending equipment to clients, and as well as post-production work, pre-production, as well as podcast marketing, which is kind of an interesting space to be in at the moment, because lots of people start podcasts and they want to know how they do it, how do they actually get a story going, and obviously how that would benefit their business. So that's what I do. However, I do other things as well, as Craig may know as well. I'm a musician as well, so I play with a band here in Glasgow as well. I go up and down the Scottish lands from Aberdeen to Glasgow. Craig invites me on the boat. I cannot do it because I'm in Aberdeen. I play a gig, but I do that as well. And that for me at the moment is more of a side project. It's great to still be involved in that industry because it's a great industry. It's fun, and that's my core passion. That's how I got actually into podcasting from music. I have studies in popular music production, and I also had a lot of experience on TV as well. And podcasting was kind of like one of those things, one of those spaces that I identified as a great opportunity to get into a few years ago. And I started a business into it. But yeah, that's who I am.
I would make the assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you can go and do music production, surely podcasting is a piece of piss.
It's a piece of cake, man.
Yeah. No, I thought that.
It's a piece of cake from a technical point of view. Because all the equipment that you would use normally for a podcast, for an audio podcast, you would use in music production. However, there is the other aspect of podcasting, which is the video side, which I started learning more about as I gone, over the years, and which is like cameras and lighting and all that. And obviously, there's another aspect which a lot of people may not think about, is the storytelling aspect of it, which is actually the most important, because if you don't have a good story in a podcast, if the podcast is not good enough from a story point of view, people will just not listen to it.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm now doing this podcast and I've done literally hundreds of podcasts relating to SEO and digital marketing. People now, the guests come on, some of them have got great stories, some not, some are selling, some are trying to pitch their shit. And I'm like, do you know what? I don't fucking enjoy this. I don't enjoy hearing your story, because the story is, I had no money, I built a business, give me your money, guys, and look at me, blah blah blah, blah. And you're like, nah, man, I don't want to hear that. So that's why I've made the decision now. I'm getting guests on who, like yourself, have done different weird stuff. They still do their hobby, they make money, and I think hearing that whole thing and that journey and stuff, that's the stuff I want to hear. I'm not interested in that stuff. So I think, like you say, the storytelling aspect of it is what I want to hear. I want to hear people who've maybe been a footballer, who've retired. What did they do with their money? How did they invest it? Where did it go wrong? Tell us some fun shit that happened along the way. Some crazy people you met, situations you got yourself into. All of these things, I think, make for a good podcast. And that is what I personally enjoy hearing as well. And obviously, that's where I've kind of paused the podcast for probably for about 18 months. And I'm like, nah, and I've done it with amazing guests. I've had some amazing guests on, but some of them are just boring, repetitive. So I think, the storytelling aspect of it is something I personally enjoy hearing as well. So I think you're spot on with that. And not everyone should have a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple ways of doing a podcast, right? So the podcast you had was more focused on the SEO part. So it was an educational podcast, let's say. So the audience that would come and listen to that podcast would want to learn tips on SEO, for example. Now, for you, that may not be interesting because you're kind of like into this space for a long, long time. And you may hear the same ideas and the same stories each and every episode. How do you put a spin on that? That's the interesting bits of podcasting. And there's different types of podcasts. When I say different types, is like, for example, is it a business starting a podcast, right? So for example, if you have a business that starts a podcast and the goal of that podcast is to increase branding awareness, to appear on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, to trigger certain things on Google, like the knowledge panel, for example, or to have more authority in the space because they don't have anything, basically. They may not even have a YouTube channel. Podcasting is an attractive way to start, content marketing and to start getting some opportunities for your business. Now, that's one aspect of it. Another type of podcast could be an influencer podcast. For example, somebody that just says, today I want to start a podcast about, I don't know, some subject that is called
mindset or something.
Or something, yeah. So you could start a podcast like that. It's not necessarily related to a business, but it's something that person is passionate about and has knowledge about and wants to get people on the show. Could be, Joe Rogan, for example. That's one example. Is just like that guy is inviting people, interesting people on his show, and he can talk about any type of subject, right? So that's a second.
That's what I want. Yeah. Interesting people. That's it.
These work very well because you have no... there's nothing blocking you. There's nothing limiting you in choosing a certain type of guest. You could go and just say, you know what? I want this podcast to be just about interesting guests that maybe build awesome businesses and had a great story.
Yeah,
around
not
them.
even, they don't have to necessarily build businesses either. Just a good story.
Yeah.
Like, even if they failed in the end, who cares? You know, you failed, but at least you tried, and you know, you've got some fun, crazy shit in between. That's the shit we want to hear.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of angles you can throw into a podcast. How you want to do it, that really depends on your creativity at the end of the day, and then obviously the quality of the guest you get on the podcast. That's what makes a good podcast.
That's why we're starting with you at the very bottom. And sorry, mate. But no, it's like I say, different journeys and different stuff. So no, I think it's great, and I think you've obviously helped me a lot in terms of the podcast setup. It's taken me best part of a year to pull all of this together, changing the lights 10 times, different mics. I bought everything 10 times over. And I only got to know you near the end of this, and I'm like, fucker, man, where was this guy all my life? So I think there is a massive, massive need for someone like you. Like, dude, I just want good lights. I don't want to pay for everything twice. Where do I get this? Where do I get that? Where do I get that?
That's the easiest part, man. In my opinion, is the easiest part is to find the right equipment.
For you, it's easy.
For me, it's easy. Maybe for you, it's not. Setting it up, maybe it's not as easy. But some people may prefer to pay for a studio, to go in a studio for just a few episodes, crank up like 20 episodes. You have a crew there, and that's it. You want to have your own podcast studio, which I get, because if you have a podcast studio, you can get as many guests you want, and you can retake, and you're not limited on time, and you're a content creator at the end of the day. Why not, right? But there's some people that would just go to a studio, pay some time for that, and then
you're kicked out in the hour though. You're rushing. Imagine you did an amazing podcast and you've got an amazing story, and you've only booked the fucking thing for an hour. And you're like, oh shit, we're at 55 minutes.
And you don't have your own coffee there, and you don't have your own processes in place and stuff like that. Now, if you have an important guest coming to your studio, you'll make sure that everything is spot on, right? You don't know what that studio is going to do.
Exactly.
They could fail in recording the podcast.
The guy might not even turn up. It's pretty scary. But again, just moving on with what you do, obviously, I like to tell this story. I have to tell it again. So Bogdan reaches out to me, Craig, I'd like you to be a guest on my podcast. And I'm fine, sure. I love to go on podcasts and meet new people and all that. So I'm like, sure, no problem. And he sent me this address, and he mentioned his studio. So the day comes, I drive out to where he is, and I turned up outside this fucking house, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm checking the address and all that.
Is it good?
The fuck is this? So I messaged him, dude, is this the right address or whatever? And you're like, yeah, is that you in the white car? And I'm like, yeah. And you came out, go into his house, and I'm like, I'm going into a fucking guy's house here, man. What is this? But we went round his back garden, and boom, the studio was there. And is that an old garage?
An old converted garage.
Converted garage.
But it's larger than normal because they had planning permission for it. For whatever reason, they shouldn't have planning permission, but they had. So it's larger than a normal garage.
Yeah. So going in, and and I'll be totally honest, I'm walking in going, the fuck are you doing here, Craig? You're going round someone's garden. What have you fucking slumped to here? Honestly, that was my initial thought. I'm going, what the fuck? And then when I get in this studio, I nearly fucking passed out. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. The best of equipment. And I've said in numerous other podcasts, like, there must be hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment in here. The best seats, the best background, the best mics, the black magic cameras. And I'm like, oh my God, if I've ever judged something on a first appearance sitting outside the house, how wrong could I have ever been? And that's why I always tell that story, because it was like such a low, and then you're like, oh my God, what a setup, which is absolutely amazing to have that. And obviously, I didn't know anything about you at the time. I didn't realise you were a musician, because I'm sitting in this podcast and we're sitting in similar chairs to this, and we'll come to that in a moment. And I'm looking at all this shit in the background, all this flashing lights and stuff. It's like a spaceship. And I'm like, oh my God. And then you're like, oh, I know the music background and all that. And I'm like, shit's starting to make sense now. But you do have that little studio.
Mm-hmm.
you have your own podcast and guests come on, but people can come there and record stuff as well, right?
Yeah, if they contact me directly, they can come if they based in Glasgow. Definitely. I had a few clients coming, but it's quite exclusive. I'm not going to allow anybody to get in there.
No Tom, Dick or Harry can go.
Yeah, and not any type of podcast. But if they want to record a podcast, definitely I'm happy to help them out, especially if they work with me on the post-production side as well.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm happy to do.
So out with that, you mentioned post-production. Let's say I've got a podcast here and I've recorded it and I've got my cameras and it all goes onto the computer and everything else. Let's say someone hypothetically does that. They can just send you that stuff and you will go away and do post-production, make it all sound good, chop up bits.
Exactly.
All of that kind of good stuff. And would you even distribute that for people?
Yeah.
Right.
So
I'm just curious of what goes into your service.
Yeah. So let's talk from the beginning. There's a few parts of myself. So what I do as a podcast production company, there's the pre-production aspect of it, right? This actually happens before the recording takes place. So we do have clients that do want to bother with outlining episodes. Now, you're a natural, Craig. You can talk about anything, anytime, but not everybody's like that. Some people need help with an outline. And obviously, that creates a little bit more predictability. And it also creates maybe for a better story. But what we do for our clients is like we research the guests, we can book guests on their podcast, and then we look into what that guest is all about, and we create a narrative based on that guest, and that's going to be the story of the show. Now, what narrative that's going to be, it really depends on the story. That's why we want to find the best guest possible, like you try for your own podcast, because that's what makes actually a podcast good to start with. So we do that. That's one of the services we do. And then we help our clients with the recording side. So for example, that could be remote. Many podcasts are remote nowadays. Not many are in person like we have here, which I think are the best in my opinion. But I do have clients that use studios, or they have their own studios, for example, and they have an engineer on site and they communicate with us and they send the files to us for post-production, but they would do probably that part. But if you're based in the UK, for example, and you want me somewhere in the UK, for example, the government reached to me a few days ago. They wanted to start a podcast on education. We would go there with the equipment, record everything for them, and then we process the files for them afterwards. So that's the production side of it, is the recording actually. So pre-production, production, and then we talk about post-production, which is the hardest part because it requires work. Now, you could argue that you could just put some files into some AI tool and it will chop it up for you and do wonders or whatever. It's not happening like that. Unfortunately, some people think that that's how it works, but it doesn't. We take the footage, which for a podcast like this is quite large in file size, so it could occupy a few gigs because it's quality, right? You need to process that footage, color grade it. You need to multicam editing. AI can help a little bit here, speeding up the process, but still a human person needs to do these decisions. Cut out any fluff, anything that shouldn't be in the podcast. Maybe there's defamation issues in the podcast. Maybe there's something that you said that shouldn't be said, or I said, anything like that. Protecting basically the integrity of our client. That's some of the things that we deal with. The creative side. So how do we put a trailer in the beginning of the podcast? Do we do something more interesting in the podcast on the audio sound design, anything like that? Anything that deals with the repurposing of the podcast. So cutting social media reels, creating an article based on the podcast with the right SEO keywords and everything. Things like writing the show notes for the podcast. That's also a copywriting thing that we do for the client. And obviously after that, there's the distribution aspect. So adding the podcast on all the different platforms such as Spotify, iTunes. Many people don't know how to do this, and they don't have the time to actually post on all the different channels. So they want somebody to take care of that aspect. And after that, there is the marketing side of the podcast where we enhance the visibility of the podcast. There's so many things that we can do to make that happen. So obviously, as you can see, there's a big amount of, like, a large selection of services that clients can get into. Now, some clients, they can choose to work with us only with post-production. Some clients, they want just guest bookings. Some clients, they just want marketing. Whatever that is, we can do.
Yeah.
However, we can do end to
The
end.
whole lot.
Yeah, the entire thing.
No, listen, you don't need to tell me. I'm a big fan of delegation and outsourcing and getting someone to do all of that stuff. And me and Chris Palmer were actually on a live stream earlier today, and we were talking about Opus Clip, where we would whack our live stream through Opus Clip, but it always cuts the joke part. Like, you know, the bit that you're like, that's really good, always cuts it short or cuts it in half or something. You're like, I need to manually go in and grab that piece. So AI is not quite there with that stuff. And that's where I think, you know, spending that extra bit of time doing proper edits and getting the clips that really are good. And even, like you say, putting on a nice trailer. Personally, I'm a big fan of the trailer at the start of the podcast as well, where it's got a few, I don't know, heated debate or whatever it may be to start to suck people in. I love seeing that. And then you go, oh, I need to watch this now because that person said this or that. So I'm a big fan of that. And I think it doesn't just come out of box with AI. As much as I'd love that to happen, it's not there. And
it's a good AI. It's good for DIYers. So if you want to do that yourself and you have the time to do it, go on, man, and do it. It's great to use AI for this. It's no problem. However, for example, for a video producer that uses his skills to do this job, they actually get the job done faster than AI, because AI can do certain things that are not right, and then you go spend time correcting what AI did wrong, which sometimes can result in longer production time. So we use AI sometimes on generating certain ideas, scripts, and stuff like that. That really helps, like especially at the pre-production stage, drafting something or anything like that. Even generating an article, and then you take that article and you change it and you make it, even transcription.
Just doing a summary on a guest that you maybe don't know enough about. Go get it to do some deep research on him, and you'll be able to tell him all of this stuff on that person.
It's really useful for researching and journalistic work. That's really awesome. Even transcription, right? Transcription now, that is really out of the game for sure. Like you would not have a human transcribe anything anymore. It makes no sense. However, there used to be a time a few years ago when I had somebody to transcribe stuff by hand, which now that doesn't happen, which is great, because that I hated to do that. I never did that myself. I always delegated that to somebody. Now I don't need to do that anymore, and I can charge pennies for that anyway. So it's part of the service. I don't need to put that on cost of my production services. Actually the service becomes cheaper for the client, which is great. It's more attractive. So so that's what we use AI for. We use AI sometimes for audio restoration, which I think is really, really cool. There are certain restoration software. So for example, let's say we record this podcast and the audio is bad, or something is bad, goes wrong, and you cannot record it again, which happens, especially in the remote environment.
Yeah.
We do have certain capabilities of making that audio sound like it was in the studio or like nothing happened. We had clients came back to us with really bad footage or really bad audio, and that sometimes happens. If the preparation is not good or some accident happened, we can fix that. And AI made this even better. Because now you can upload audio on Adobe Enhance, for example, is one of the tools that we use. And I would never upload a good audio on Adobe Enhance because it will make it worse. Believe it or not, it's going to make it sound like AI. However, if something is really bad, you could try to see if that works. If that doesn't work, maybe a combination of what AI does and what we do, maybe that would salvage the audio. So things like that we can do to post-production work. So yeah, that really helps.
So there's a few things in the background there that you can get out of trouble with, which is, I can only picture it. I done a podcast last year with a chap called Dan Pena, who I absolutely love that man.
Imagine if that thing went wrong, man.
Dude, see, like the days before and even the night before, like because of the status of that man and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get there. You're invited to his castle. There can be no fucking mistakes.
No.
Can be. Dude, I even had a second set of equipment with me just in case the shit there failed. And it's scary, but obviously it's good to know in the back of your mind you may still be able to salvage something, because it's just like, what if the audio breaks? What if this breaks? What if that breaks? What if the camera footage? We had 3 cameras on at all times. And I'm like, one of those fucking cameras is staying on the 2 of us at all times in case any of those other 2 fail and stuff so like that. So I'm sitting there strategically going, because I'm not phoning up Dan after that going, Dan, my audio didn't work, so can I come back up? Because if you've ever watched Dan Pena...
But that happened to me, man, and I know what I'm doing, man.
Dude, he would roast you alive. I would imagine him saying, you fucking dipshit, you fucking stupid dude, he said that before at like, obviously, conferences and stuff. He's like, I guarantee you that at least one of you forgot this out of the next. No, he went, I guarantee you at least 99% have forgot this. And he went, get out the fucking room. You're all fucking dumb shits. I don't want to talk to people like you. And it was a common thing that people are likely to forget. But it's like, I only want that 1%. But yeah, I could imagine getting tortured from that. So that would give me the biggest fear. But again, it's good to know that even if that did potentially go wrong, there are things out there that could potentially salvage it. Because like I say, I would be heartbroken to get a guest like that on and for it to have went wrong.
That's the key word, man. Potential, because you never know if it's too bad. Not even that would salvage it. Like I had one girl. She's a wedding videographer. She sent me some files and she asked me, "Can you salvage this? Because literally my microphones died during the wedding vows." Can you imagine that? So I'm like, I don't know. So I look into the files. Luckily, I was able to recover and make it sound good enough so they didn't even know that happened.
Yeah.
Which is good. But then I had a second inquiry exactly like that from a friend of her, because she said, "Oh, this guy solved the issue. So now I'm going to send you to this guy that also had a similar issue. Can you fix it?" No fucking chance, man.
Oh, man.
That was way too messy. It was way, way too messy. Like the microphone was so far away and like the amount of noise and reverberation is like you cannot make it up. So it was destroyed. So what they had to do, they had to re-record the vows in the studio and overdub it, which is like, oh man.
That's just fake as shit at that point, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why you need to hire the right people, man. I don't say
or
that
have
the guy...
the right equipment.
Yeah.
You can have the right people, but shit equipment.
Yeah. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
It happened to me. But it happened on my own podcast, not on my client's podcast, where I booked a guy in, and it was actually my first ever podcast that I recorded. And I used a card in my computer that was capturing all the video. It's not like the Atom Blackmagic you use. It was another card, which actually does the job. But for whatever reason, I had to prepare the software and I had 20 minutes to do it. And the guy would turn up because I was really busy with other things. And I had 20 minutes to do it. And I didn't have time to check all the freaking settings. So I just said, I think that's good enough. I think it's fine. And he wasn't, man. The footage was recorded at much lower quality than it should be. Like it was so obvious that it was bad. So I just told the guy, man, we need to re-record it again. And the guy was kind enough. He came back in the studio. He wasn't a superstar or anything like that. He was one of those guys that wanted a bit of exposure. That's why I took him as a guest to start with. And the guy was kind enough to come back and we recorded the episode and we even made fun of it on the podcast. So stuff like this can happen to anybody. When it happens, that also matters when it happens.
Yeah. I want to go on to the interesting stuff, because a lot of people are like, fuck your podcast stuff. So obviously the X Factor is going to be the first topic we're going to cover, and we maybe even insert a little clip here of Bogdan singing on the X Factor. And obviously you were a young kid and living the dream, as like I'm sure many people in the UK. I certainly grew up watching the X Factor, hooked to it. You know, it was always on at Christmas time, like, or it started maybe September, then you get, you know, all the rounds, and then you know, got to the live shows and stuff. And I didn't even know this. He came along to, so I was speaking to Bogdan, done the podcast, and at his house, and we're just talking, and I'm like, lovely guy, you know, he's here, he's trying to, you know, build a business. And I thought, do you know what, why don't you come and meet some of my local friends, and stuff like that, you know, just to talk about business or whatever, you know, it's just good to network. I definitely believe that. Sadly, I couldn't go to that Christmas party. I ended up in the hospital, believe it or not, with kidney stones, but that's another story. But the Bogdan's turned up at this house, friend's house, and they're having a few drinks and everything else. And my friends were WhatsApping me, and we always talk a lot of shit to each other, as everyone does. And they're like, you didn't fucking tell us this guy was in the X Factor. And I'm like, shut up. And they're like, no, he's some singer. And I'm like, shut up. And they're like, no, dude, he was in the X Factor. And I'm like, yeah, good one. And then someone sent me the clip, and I'm like, why this motherfucker never told us anything about this? Like, that's quite an important thing. You like spoke to me for a bit. I never cracked an absolute light on it. But for me, I'm like, man, we need to talk about this. Like, we need to get this on the podcast. Obviously, as a fan of the show here in the UK, I was like, man, amazing. But want to talk a bit about it. Obviously, you got to the final at the age of 17.
Yeah.
Who beat you?
We were 4 in the final. Basically, we were. There were 3 judges, and 2 of the judges managed to get 2 contestants in the final each. So it was me with a girl on one side and 2 other guys on the other side, and basically we were eliminated. We were eliminated all at once, so only one won that particular live show. So yeah, there's a guy. His name is Florin Ristei, and he's kind of like a superstar in Romania at the moment. I mean, he's basically on TV everywhere.
Is that the guy you sent me the Wikipedia of not that long ago?
Probably. This guy that won the X Factor, he used to play in a band that I ended up actually playing in after I finished with the X Factor, because I moved from my small town, which is the distance between Glasgow and London, something like that. Even more, I guess. And I moved to the capital, to Bucharest, and I ended up playing in that band for 2 years. And I played at all sorts of different levels there. We played function events, also weddings, and also we played on TV as well, because Bucharest is an active city, much like London, for example. So there's all the TV channels are there. So they managed to land on a few contracts on a few different TV channels. Think of it like the equivalent of BBC in Romania, for example. We played at that level, which was great, and I love doing that. And we were basically on the road every single day. What was funny was that at that time, after X Factor, so during X Factor, I was still in school, right, in Satu Mare, my hometown, and I didn't go to school for half a year. So once I returned back from the show, I had to basically go back to school, which was so weird, because you were I could say you get famous overnight. That's what happens. It's a lifetime experience. Like, you cannot make that up. It's one of those things that not a lot of people have the chance to live. It's one thing when you go up, from album to album and single to single, and you get started, get more famous, over time. But it's another one when you appear on TV, on the biggest channel, on the biggest show in Romania where everybody's watching overnight. It's totally different. And on a kid's mindset, right, it takes a toll on that, right? So it's not easy. So once we finished the X Factor, I had to go back to school. So back to normal, you know what I mean? And that's depressing, man. It's not easy, man, because you know what you're capable of, and you know the type of people you were surrounded by, and you know the type of opportunities that were around you, and now you're back to square one, basically. Kind of like that, you know?
Given a taste, and then it's
taken away. Now, it's not taken away 100% because people still recognize you, and social media helps a little bit with, for example, communicating with some people. So I was still communicating with certain people that we were discussing about getting a manager for me as a musician and getting some songs released and stuff like that. Nothing came out of that, unfortunately, because I didn't know what I'm doing. I was too young to understand how the show business works properly. But I was in school, so I just followed, basically. I stayed in, I had 4 months of school in that year, and then the summer will come. So those 4 months were a little bit of a pain for me because I had to learn everything from, back, stuff that I missed. And then we had the holidays for the summer. And then in the summer, I had the opportunity to play quite a lot in my local town because everybody wanted the X Factor guy on all sorts of different places. And I would get paid a little bit here and there. And I realized that, things start to move a little bit, but I cannot do it in this small town. It's impossible for me to do it here because it's so small. Nobody wants, there's no TV channel. There's nothing. So at some point I went to another city, and on the train, there was a phone rang, and they told me look, man, you're the guy from X Factor. I said, yeah. We want a lead singer in a band in Bucharest, and I wonder if you can come next week. And I said, man, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. And eventually I ended up getting on the train when I turned 18, exactly on the day, exactly on my birthday. I got on the train. I told my parents, look, I'm out of here. My parents were like, okay. They knew that that's going to happen at some point, and they knew that I have to do that. And the first beer, the first legal beer I ever had was with a stranger on the train. And I didn't have it with my dad, which was funny enough. So me and this stranger, we stayed on the train. I told him it's my birthday, and then he grabbed the beer and we started having a chat and stuff like that. And I realized that I'm by myself. There's nobody else around me. Nobody tells me what to do. Which is quite an interesting feeling, a very liberating feeling. And it happened all of a sudden. So I end up into a house, which I had to pay only 100 euros a month to stay there. It was in the attic, man. It was like one of those converted attics. And no furniture, nothing. I didn't even have money for furniture. So a club just shut down in Bucharest. So I took some of the furniture from there because they were giving it away. So I put some of that furniture in my attic. And there was not even hot shower, man, in the bathroom. It was cold shower, and winter was coming. So I actually used cold water for most of the winter, and don't think that Romania is this image or something like that. It's not like that. But for whatever reason, that house was a little bit of a mess. That house, the band that I got into, they used that house for storing equipment, and some of the guys that were playing in the band were share housing. They shared a house for accommodation purposes because nobody cared. So, and I got into this band all of a sudden. But the nice thing is that, the funny thing actually is that I was still in school. I still have 1 more year to finish school. So I had to move schools from my hometown to Bucharest. And you're not supposed to do that, especially in the last year, because you need to have exams and all that stuff, which is very annoying. And they had to do something to move me. So somebody talked, the manager of the band talked with a certain school not very far away from where I was living in Bucharest. And I managed to get in there. Man, that teacher, man, hated my guts, man. She hated me. Like, why am I here? She didn't understand that I do not have parents with me in Bucharest. And I had to miss lots of lessons, man.
Yeah.
Like lots of days I had to not go to school. I had to go with the band and play because that was my bread and butter.
So this was a paid job though?
Yes,
You're
man.
getting paid for this? Like weekly or per gig? Or how does it work?
Per gig. I would get about 300, 400 per gig or something like that. But that in Romania is good money,
lot of
man.
money.
And you have maybe a few gigs a month, like let's say 10 gigs.
Yeah.
And that's good.
So
that's
you're earning a few grand
income.
a month, which
it's
is
good.
decent for an 18-year-old, I would imagine.
Man. Yeah. So imagine like the other guys in my school were like, what's with this guy? You know, I had money to do whatever I wanted, took taxis to school and stuff like that, which is nice. But Bucharest was a nice thing. So that happened. And then I played in one more band for a few more months. But then at some point I said, you know what, I just want to move countries because it felt like my solo career wasn't taking off in Romania. Because I tried a little bit.
I want to go back a few steps here, right? So you mentioned like obviously the X Factor, you then go away, you get this band in Bucharest and it's not quite working out. Does the X Factor not support you after the X Factor? Like, I don't know. Obviously, I've never been there. And I get the kind of impression from watching it in the press and stuff here that people are, you know, just literally tossed out the door. See you later. There's nothing. No one says, you've got 100,000 followers here. You've got people, cameras following you around. There's nothing at all where they try and give you some kind of media training or here's an agent that can maybe look after you and give you some guidance because you're going to be... Because I'm assuming when you're in the X Factor, there's potential like commercials and advertising shit and collaboration. They're not teaching you how to deal with that. You're just getting all this shit thrown at you and you've got to maybe speak to your mum or something to figure out whether it's right or wrong.
So what happens is you sign a contract. And when you sign the contract, you basically say that you are an asset to the X Factor franchise. So whatever they say, you need to do. Obviously, I think that if it's something outrageous, you could argue that you don't want to do that. I think you can get away with that. But we had to be in all sorts of places during the show. Like, for example, we had to film commercials for them, for certain brands, for the show, not for us, for the show. We will not get paid for that.
Yeah.
Right? Things like, be at the right, be at rehearsals, be at all sorts of different events and all sorts of different things that we're taking behind the scene.
You see them going to fucking film premieres and everything.
Yeah.
At times, well, certainly in the UK, you see the guys turning up at film premieres and stuff as well. And you're like...
They were filming in our house, man. We were all living in a house. It was real. Like, all that stuff was real. However, not everybody lived in the house, which was kind of unfair because if you don't have everybody living in the house, then not everybody will get the same mental pressure. Because that's a mental pressure you get, and it's not fair. So the winner actually lived in the house just for a few different shots here and there, just to be on the camera. Everybody knew that he's actually in the house, so people watching at home. But in reality, he was playing in Bucharest and he was living at home, which if you could argue that that's not fair, and it is not, because I had to stay in a house with different people and all the gossips and everything that goes on there, that's mentally, man.
Was there any gossip like Bogdan's with so-and-so, like another person? Like, because you see it here, that one slept in the cupboard with that one and all that stuff.
Not to that extent because I was a minor. I was under 18. So they couldn't exploit that with me.
Yeah.
But they were exploiting that with other people. It is a reality TV show. That's what it is at the end of the day. And you sign up that you're happy with that. And I was happy with that because at the end of the day, what mattered to me was exposure and everything. I loved it. So that was not an issue. What was the issue is that not everybody was treated equally. So that was an issue. But you mentioned that what happens after it finishes, nothing, man. Like, nobody tells you anything. Nobody gives you any coaching. They promised us when we finished at boot camp, right before getting into the live shows, because at some point there was a discussion that happened. They said that everybody that is at this stage of the competition, no matter if you're a finalist or if you are eliminating the first live show, you're going to get out from here with some sort of deal.
Yeah.
Nah, that was a lie, man. Because everybody except two guys in that live in the X Factor in that season, they got some sort of record deal, but the rest of us, they just had to continue as normal. And I see some of the other competitors, not just me, they just live a normal life, man. Nothing happened. And it's sad because in order to reach there, man, you have to battle with thousands of people. So you were selected from all sorts of competitors, and you definitely have some sort of star in you.
Yeah.
But they didn't help you out, man, after that. So you have to do that yourself. The problem is that if you have the knowledge to do it or not, that's the question, you know what I mean?
You're not going to have knowledge at 17. There's no way.
And if I'm thinking about it, man.
If you'd done it now, you'd be like...
Yeah. Now it's too late, man. It's 11 years. But
but if you went back in there now, you'd be like, oh, man, this is a different game.
Different game. Well, nothing stops me from competing again, but I'm not sure if I want to do that again. But one thing that I can tell is I remember the day when my Facebook account just got locked, man.
You told me that before.
Yeah, because it got locked because there were too many notifications and too many messages. Like I got hundreds of messages and notifications and friendship requests. People, like the guys from Facebook, thought that my account is hacked or there's something wrong with this account. So I had to wait 3 days for it to be unlocked, and I had to prove my identity and all that. And that was when Facebook was not very rigorous about identity checks and stuff. I started getting like so many followers all over the sudden, and I didn't capitalize on that. No paid ads, nothing, man. I could have done so much, man.
That's why, and we'll go on to that in a moment. Like we'll come to that in a second. But one last little thing I want to ask you about the X Factor. You mentioned that guy who won, and he was pretending to be in the house for filming and stuff. In hindsight, knowing what you know, do you reckon that guy was always destined to win no matter what? And you guys...
It's possible. The guy is a talented guy, man. The guy definitely has a great voice, and he has a great charisma as well. So I don't mind that he won. I think he deserves it. He was an older guy, so he had more experience as well. So I was 17, he was in his 20s, 27, 28. So my age, probably something around that.
Yeah.
So 10 years older than me, obviously more experience. Like if he would have the type of mentality I have now, no wonder he won, man. Because he knows how to go around and to talk to people and stuff like that. And I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So...
But was it him? My thing, and what I'm trying to get to is that fucking thing a rigged game?
It probably is, man.
Because I have seen
because I didn't see any numbers about the votes, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure. There's a scandal on the internet about the way people voted for me. So because my hometown is very small, not very small, but think of it like the size of like 200,000 people living there. Like, it's not a capital. It's like it's a normal town. It's a normal city, let's call it. I got so much support from that. Like my town, just only my town, man, they spread flyers and posters everywhere, and I had my school got involved in that, and the council as well promoted me as well. So there were lots, man, and I know for a fact that there's people that spend hundreds of pounds on voting. And I want to thank them for that. But they called many times, and I know even my school teachers, they called dozens of times to get as many votes in so I can win. And there was even a scandal where they said that the council shouldn't spend public money for this kind of acts. And imagine the type of scandal that happened there. And there were all sorts of things, but even the council got involved a little bit into the campaign. And even with that, man, with that amount of backing and effort, no, man.
Dude, imagine you knew me at that time. We could rig that shit, man. And
definitely, man. The thing is that the things that I know now, man, you just need a few thousands of pounds, man. You can be everywhere, man.
Oh, yeah. It's insane. But I think obviously it's a great experience, but moving on to when I met you and we were talking about the knowledge panel stuff.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't understand what a knowledge panel is, it's like gold medal from Google. You know, if you've built a personal brand, you've got your photos up there and all your shit's all tied together and you look like a superstar, is the layman's way of saying that to someone. If you've got a knowledge panel, you're looking good in Google's eyes. And I've got some knowledge panel stories that I was telling Bogdan when he came to my office and we were talking about the X Factor and shit and we spoke about it and we're like, dude, I have had to pretend and bullshit, you know, doing newspaper stories, telling people what a great guy I am, fucking fake fucking awards. These are real, by the way. These ones are real. But all the usual crap of the day. And you have sat there and you've been in all these national press, international press, and you weren't doing shit with it, which pains me. I was sitting like, oh my God, my fucking God, you motherfucker. Like, you know, I've even tried for years to get a Wikipedia page. I'm not known enough to have a Wikipedia page, and you just got to face reality sometimes. But he swaggers along Wikipedia page, boom, because he's got all the press and supporting documentation that he was in the X Factor and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And like I say, from a marketing perspective, knowing what I know, man, if I got a hold of someone in the X Factor and I was the manager, man, shit would blow up. Like, if I could get a young person who was naive like you on the X Factor and be able to game that, I'd take advantage of the links, all of the other stuff, man, I would create a fucking monster, which you're now doing with the Wikipedia, the knowledge panel, and all of the marketing side of things. Because I think I even seen it. A lot of people say the penny dropped. I remember sitting talking to you because it was over there, and I could actually see the penny dropping in your brain. Like, what? And then going away and doing everything that you had to do to connect the dots was the easiest Wikipedia page anyone's ever probably had, the easiest knowledge panel any human being's ever had, and all of that.
It was already there, man. Just had to
join a few dots here and there. And because you were calling yourself Bratis.
Nikolai Bogdan Bratis. Yeah. And I also had Bratis only, and everything was a little bit of a mess, so Google didn't understand who I am. Yeah,
because Bratis was the musician name. You were going to go as the artist Bratis. So obviously calling yourself your real name and Bratis names, and fucking variations of it is not good from a Google perspective. So that is going to maybe let Google think he's three different people. But when they realised, no, this is the guy, boom, everything popped, which was quite a funny story to see happening. But obviously from there, you went on to dabble a bit in marketing and you know, and everything else, which I think quite excites you. Is that something that you see yourself dipping more and more into? Because I know obviously life starts with podcasts. You know, you're doing a bit of production. You've clearly got those technical skills for, you know, doing all of that. But so what? You know, so what's the next thing? And is marketing the next thing for you now? When you're like, I'm going to double down on this thing and make these podcasts blow up? Because you can have the fancy studio, the best equipment, but if no one's listening to the fucking stuff, what's the fucking point? So is that something where you see yourself doubling down and going right into? Yeah,
because podcasting is part of PR. Basically, at the end of the day, digital PR, it's a big domain. Definitely this is something that I'm working on. For example, the SEO stuff, you know, getting websites ranked properly on Google. Like some of the things that I mentioned, for example, creating articles that actually rank properly, generating backlinks, and getting basically all the assets you need to ensure that you have a good personal brand, like I did for myself, right? And with the help of Craig. That's stuff that I'm integrating into my own services at the moment, because podcasting is a great personal branding tool, but it will do nothing if you don't do all the other things. So holistically, you need to look at it like where do I need to be, right?
See the way I see this. If you create a podcast, it's like you going in the X Factor and singing a song, right?
Yeah.
And you've got a shitty little bit of exposure.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing the rest of the stuff with it, you're that naive young guy.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the podcast. If you're not doing all of that other shit underneath,
and I see that.
I'm like, man, you've done the fucking hardest part.
I see that all the time, man. There's all sorts of podcasts that, have good value. They talk about the right things, but they just not getting out there. They just don't get the right exposure. And you could argue that organic, if it's a good story, organically will just go up, but is not. Like in the X Factor, for example, there's so much money that goes into marketing, and that's why that show is like, obviously it's a great story and a great thing to watch, but nobody would know about it if you would not promote it properly. Online and obviously on TV in that case. But for our case, podcasting is an online thing, right? So you want to make sure that you're in each and every corner of the internet for people to find that podcast and listen to it, and obviously find your business as well, because at the end of the day, what we care about, if you have a podcast for the fun of it and you want to grow that podcast and make that a business, because that you can definitely do that and sell sponsorship on the podcast, and there's so many other things you can do with a podcast to make money out of that. So it's similar to what a YouTube channel would do, for example. But businesses, for example, they start podcasts to increase their brand and personal brand of the host, which is normally the CEO of the business, let's say. If people do not see that asset that they build, they spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds, maybe thousands of pounds to get it running, and it's just lost because nobody sees it. So what do you do? Like, get yourself your IMDb page and make sure that you have your Google Graph sorted. Like, for example, get on the Wikidata and get in all the different dots in there, so it shows up and Google understands, what the podcast is all about, because you can do that for a podcast, not just for people. You can do that for any entity. And then obviously
SEO stuff, paid ads,
backlinks, all that, like mentioned, get PR, get mentioned on all sorts of different websites, and get a press release going on with your episodes. Why not? If you have a good guest, or if you're just starting your podcast for the first time, definitely do that.
So did you ever see potential new podcasts? So you're doing a podcast, you've never done one before, no one knows who you are. It's going to be hard to get off the ground. Do you ever see people just running paid ads at it? Facebook ads, Google ads? Is that a common thing?
I think on podcasting, you want to go where people listen to podcasts, and Spotify.
So can you do Spotify ads?
Yeah. So when you listen, many times when I go in my car,
that's the one platform I've never done ads on. Believe it or not. I've done TikTok, I've done them all.
It's a good platform for podcasters specifically. You could definitely do the old-fashioned Facebook ads and Instagram ads and all that with Reels, for example. If you have a very cool Reel and it's a good person, you've got a nice guest, and the topic is quite interesting. If you design that Reel in the right way to make people come to your show to listen to the full story, and you do a paid ad on that, you're definitely going to get it off the ground. If it's a shitty Reel that doesn't make sense, bad graphics and whatever, it's not engaging enough, even paid ads may not do anything for you. So you want to do that. YouTube ads, that's also something you could play with. I tell my clients, you want to do some ads of some sort, because what we're dealing with is a snowflake. If you don't have ads, your content is a snowflake, and a snowflake will just melt within minutes, seconds even. What you want to do is create a snowball, and that snowball to attract more snow, and that to stop becoming bigger and bigger. For that to happen, you need to have an initial support, and that could be the ads, but also other things that are not necessarily ads that could bring organic traffic, like we were talking about, getting mentioned in the right places. So getting mentioned on a certain magazine, or on a certain newspaper, or on a certain website that is specific for podcasting, for example. There's all sorts of places where you can place yourself. Or if your podcast is really good, you could even be featured on Apple.
Yeah.
So there's something called news and noteworthy. In order to get there, you need to do certain things in order to be featured there. And you can do all sorts of other things. Once you do that and you do a bit of constant promotion on the podcast right in the beginning, and if the story is good, because that's also because you can run this for months and months and nothing will happen, then obviously you're going to get the results you're looking for and it will get off the ground and possibly even scale organically from that point. Or you can do that organically plus everything you've done so far to accelerate it. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely something that I go into right now. Yeah.
No, I've never dabbled in the Spotify ads, so that's definitely one I'll try out there.
It's good for the audio podcast. Now, video podcast on Spotify, that's also available. You can add and I would encourage you to have this podcast also uploaded in Spotify as a video podcast.
What if I just go after your name, brand jacking, and I just go after you?
I brand jacked your name.
Yeah. So that's a common thing. Like, you want to, like, I brand
you
jacked
came on my
Dan,
podcast. The first thing I did, I wrote an article and I used your name as a keyword.
Yeah.
Now, if people go on Craig Campbell, search Craig Campbell on Craig Campbell SEO, I believe, on Google, they're going to find my article. And actually, that's one of the best performing articles on my blog because your name is searched quite often.
Yeah. Listen, I think, I'm saying it as half a joke. I mean, I'm not really joking. If there's a reason why I would have a Dan Pena on.
Yeah.
I mean, one, I absolutely love the guy, and I think, he's great. He's just a great guy. Yeah. But secondly, he's very, very well known, and I want to level up. I want to grab on his attention, and
you can leverage that in many, many ways. You can, if you have a good relationship with that person, also, you can ask them to share it on their own social media and their own network, which it happens quite a lot, and people are happy to do that. And if you have the right processes in place as well, because for example, you get the guy on the podcast, right? It's an important dude. Send them a gift after the podcast. That could be a nice touch. And then after that, you send them an email with all the assets you produced. If they're professional enough, they will be happy to share them because they want to look good as well. So that's why investing in the right equipment, it's important. So you send that to them. They will share it. They'll tag you. Things just start spiraling from there. So that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Use other people's networks to grow your own. Another thing that is quite interesting is to use other podcasts. So, for example, you get yourself another podcast. You mention your own podcast on that podcast. People come to your show to listen. Or let's say I say, Craig, I think this episode is great. What if I put this episode on my own show instead?
Yeah.
And I say that if you want to, or like half of it, and if you want to listen to the rest of the show, go to your feed.
Yeah.
That's organic stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay for these collaborations and stuff like exchanges and how would you call them, but people do this a lot.
I'm curious, right, that you just said something there, and it fucks with my SEO brain. Let's say you did say to me, Craig, I want to put some of this shit on. Like, by the way, that's not happening because this is going on mine. But let's say you said that to me and you upload part of this podcast first and then I upload the full thing on my YouTube. Do you reckon my reach is fucked because you had it up first? Because it's kind of duplicate content?
You could argue about that day in, day out. If you just don't put the entire thing, you just put a section of it. I don't think that's going to be an issue. And you call it differently and, different titles and everything.
Remember, AI will be looking at the wording, the transcription. They're going to know. You're going to know, man.
Yeah.
That would just be my fear. I'm like, man, I don't want to collaborate with no one. It's going on mine. But nah, I think, but you can collaborate with people. You can say, listen, I'll come on yours, you come on mine, or
anything like that.
Whatever.
Or make an exclusive episode for that person. Yeah. That's also fine. Make an exclusive episode, put it on their channel, on their feed, and then just say, link down in the show notes for Craig's podcast. And listen more on that. So make sure that that's a great piece of content that people will say, man, I want to listen to this guy.
Yeah.
It works. It's not magical. You're going to get hundreds of thousands of people. No, it's not happening. But you're going to get attention, because one of the biggest issues when it comes to a new podcast is to find your immediate crowd in the beginning, the first people that will actually start listening to your podcast and actually start commenting on your stuff. Because once they start engaging with your content, then the algorithm will start pushing it up and up. That's all you need in the beginning. And that's the hardest part. Once you get over that, it's good.
Like you say, it snowballs from there, and it's like an avalanche happens.
And video podcasting is now, because video podcasting wasn't a thing until a few years ago when people started recording podcasts. And you could argue, what is a video podcast? Because a podcast normally is an audio format.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's distributed via RSS feeds. That's what a podcast definition is.
Yeah.
Now that's shifted nowadays, because you could say that a podcast is two people talking in the front of a mic. And that's what you call a podcast. But you could also call this an interview.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you have a video podcast, don't limit yourself only on a podcast. Why not creating content that is not necessarily a podcast? It could be a portrait content, like, for example, solo episode of you discussing certain ideas or a certain topic and giving a certain tip. That thing could go viral if you have the right techniques on making sure that actual YouTube video is on the first page. For example, recently I made a tutorial on how to use Audacity, which is an audio production software to edit a podcast. Man, I didn't pay anything for that. I just left it as is, and it started getting thousands of views.
Yeah.
And that's because it was a need for that specific content. And people started watching it, and loads of comments and suggestions and stuff like that. And these people will go and watch your podcast after that. Subscribe to your channel, and then next podcast you put up, you definitely get the views and the attention you want, because it's a lot of investment to ask somebody to watch an hour podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you do some other type of content, could be a 10-minute episode on something, or a reel, some shorter things that can get people hooked into your network, then it's easier to digest. In our podcast, it will be easier for them to accept it.
Yeah. That's, I'm a big fan of probably more short form content, in all honesty. Like, from a personal perspective, I don't like listening to 20-minute videos. If you can tell me something in 3 or 4 minutes, tell me in 3 or 4 minutes.
I like listening to you for an hour, man. It's good stuff.
But obviously, you do your live stream and you do your different shit that, you're trying to cater for everyone, because some people do. They like just listening in the background while they're doing their work or whatever it may be, but it's just trying to cater for everyone. But I think, from an SEO perspective, a 4-minute video that's tailored towards Audacity or whatever it may be is important. A lot of these podcasts I see now, people are just saying the craziest things, the most outrageous stuff to provoke a reaction, which I totally get. And I love some of it. Some of it you're like, man, you don't give a fuck. The no fucks given attitude. Do you recommend that stuff for let's say a business comes? Now, we know you can do your paid ads, and we can do this, we can do that. And it can get a certain amount of reach. But what are your thoughts on maybe thinking outside the box and saying a few things that are going to get a reaction?
Yeah, there is where the pre-production comes into place. It depends on the goal of your podcast. Now, if your solely goal is to get as viral as possible, that's probably something that you might want to do. If your goal is to just get some branding awareness and just get a few thousands of views here and there and just get a few customers in the door, maybe not the right thing to do. But it depends on what you want to do as a brand, right? So that's what I would say. But definitely, it would definitely help. I'll tell you, I do have a few clients, funny clients, that have crazy podcasts,
Really?
Yeah.
Like, they just say outrageous
Well,
stuff?
I'll tell you, I have a client that has a porn podcast. It's about porn.
Porn.
Yeah, it's about porn, and it's about people in the porn industry. So they interview all that, and it's viral, man. It's very viral. Hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
And
So-
is there no, like, if you're talking about certain things, is there not like that shit's getting cut off?
Yeah, but it
certain
doesn't
platforms?
matter because you can monetize that in different ways. It doesn't matter if YouTube demonetizes you or something like that, because you, like, at that level of craziness. And man, the other day I looked at the top keywords that are typed into Google. There's in Href, there is a feature where you can see all the directories of keywords, and the second place is Pornhub.
Oh, dude, listen, pills, porn, and poker are always going to be
Top, man.
the top. They always have been. They
Yeah.
always.
So
always
obviously,
will
if
be.
you make a podcast about this, you have a big chance of getting viral. And the stories that go on there, man, like it's taboo, right?
Mhm.
So that's why it works. And all sorts of other things, man, like all sorts of different podcasts. If you have a story, and podcasting is a safe space for that, because YouTube definitely could demonetize you tomorrow for this kind of stuff. But when you have a podcast, you basically own your content. So, for example, you can use a service like mine, Saspod hosting, where you can upload your audio podcast, just the audio part, and we distribute it to all the different places, and nobody will say anything. Nobody will demonetize you. And if you want to sell ads, you sell your ads. It's not YouTube selling your ads, and then you get a percentage out of that or whatever.
Yeah.
Is you go and grab a deal with a sponsor, and you say, on 1,000 downloads, how much will you pay me?
Yeah.
And then based on that deal, you present the analytics, and they will send the money in the bank, and they're going to get sales in exchange. So if you want to have a crazy podcast and to be as viral as possible and have sponsors on that, if the sponsors align with that, no problems. So for example, on this podcast, they have ads on all sorts of sex products, basically. And it works. Happy days, man.
If it works, it works.
And
Happy days.
the FFC, or I think how's it called? I'm not sure how's it called. The authorities that deal with what can be broadcasted and what cannot be broadcasted didn't mess up with podcasting just yet. It's a free
for all,
free jungle, man. You can do whatever. I've seen all sorts of things. That's why you can put explicit on your show on Apple, so people that didn't say, I'm 18, they cannot watch that. But it's kind of like not very regulated still. And I think it will remain like that, because at the end of the day, when you upload a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all these different places, you upload it to a podcast hosting provider.
Mm-hmm.
And that podcast hosting provider does not own the content. You basically buy space. And you put the audio in there and you distribute it yourself. It's your business. If you upload it to Spotify, though, and you distribute it from there, I think that may be a different story, because you can upload directly to Spotify, which is different. So that's also something that people need to be cautious about, uploading on a platform that could take your content down tomorrow. And I did have one of those clients that had an interesting podcast, and their podcast was taken down because, not the podcast itself, but the video podcast, the YouTube channel was taken down because it was not aligning with their policy. And they lost the entire work, man. Like, they worked with me for a few months. They came with their podcast idea, and what they were pulled down for was the name of the podcast, because the name of the podcast was very similar to another name from a big brand. And they just decided, nah, we don't have this report, and YouTube, when it comes to this brand that reported it, they will just take it down instantly because it's so big. So you cannot fight with that in any way. So they had to remove their YouTube podcast. They had to change the name of each and every episode. They had to make another channel. and it's a lot of hassle, man. They fail at the end. They didn't want to invest in it anymore because why?
That's mad.
Yeah.
Absolute mad. But mate, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And obviously below will be the link to Saspod and whatever else we can think of that we throw on there. Your YouTube and social media. But it's been a pleasure to have you on as the first guest, mate, and I'm sure we could probably talk for about 6 hours talking about all sorts of different stuff, so we might have to get you back on and talk about other things. But that is Bogdan Bratis. So if you need any help, he's your man. But appreciate it, mate.
Thank you, Craig.